He has been calling you, not once, not twice, so many times that you have lost count of the moments where something inside you stirred and you felt the pull toward him and then found a reason to look the other way, a reason to stay busy, a reason to tell yourself that you would answer tomorrow, next week, when things settled down, when you felt more ready, when you were in a better place. And tomorrow kept becoming another tomorrow, and he kept calling, and you kept turning away, not out of hatred, not out of rebellion, but out of something more complicated than either of those things. And today, right now, in this moment, he is calling again, and this time the call is carrying something it has not carried before. This time it is carrying urgency. Stay right here, because what God needs to say to you today cannot wait for another tomorrow. I am speaking to you directly right now, not to the version of you that has everything together, not to the version that shows up on Sunday or quotes scripture or knows the right language to sound like someone whose relationship with God is fully intact. I am speaking to the real version, the one that is watching this right now with something between conviction and resistance stirring in your chest. The one that already knows, before I say another word, exactly what this message is about, because the call you have been turning away from has not been subtle. It has been consistent, patient, persistent, and unmistakable. And the very fact that you are here watching this right now is not coincidence. It is the call, still calling, finding you one more time in the hope that this is the time you finally turn toward it instead of away. I am not here to condemn you. I want to be very clear about that from the beginning, because condemnation is one of the primary reasons people keep turning away from the call. They associate answering God with having to face everything they have done and everything they have failed to do and everything they have become in the seasons of distance. And the anticipation of that confrontation is so heavy that turning toward him feels more dangerous than continuing to turn away. But what God is sending through this message today is not condemnation. It is an invitation. It is the voice of a Father who has been standing at the door of your life, calling your name with a love that has not diminished by a single degree through every moment of your turning away. What he has for you on the other side of this turning is not judgment. It is everything you have been looking for in every other direction. Type Amen. If you know that you have been turning away from something that you cannot fully name, but that you recognize in this moment, let me talk about the ways you have been turning away. Because the turning is rarely dramatic. It is rarely a conscious decision to reject God or to choose against him. It is almost always quieter than that, more gradual, more understandable, and more dangerous precisely because of how reasonable it feels in the moment. The first way is busyness. The schedule that is so full that there is genuinely no space for the quiet where his voice is most clearly heard. The morning that moves from alarm to obligations without a single moment of stillness. The evening that collapses from exhaustion into sleep without any pause for connection. The weekends that are consumed by catch-up and social obligation, and the maintenance of a life that runs at a speed that leaves no margin for anything that does not demand immediate attention. This is not deliberate avoidance. It is the slow accumulation of a life that has been structured around everything except the most important relationship in it. And the busyness is comfortable because it is productive. It produces visible results. It generates the sense of forward movement. And it silences the call without requiring you to make a conscious decision to silence it. Type busy if you recognize that busyness has been your primary way of turning away from the call. The second way is distraction. The phone that is never more than an arm's reach away. The entertainment that fills every pocket of potential silence before the silence can become a space where something real might happen. The social media that provides a constant stream of external input that prevents the internal processing that the call requires. The noise, the endless, curated, stimulating noise that modern life makes available in infinite supply, that serves as a perfect buffer between you and the still small voice that cannot compete with a notification for your attention and will not try to. Distraction is different from busyness in that it does not even have the excuse of productivity. It is simply the preference for surface over depth, for the instantly stimulating over the slowly transforming, for the comfortable numbness of consumption over the sometimes uncomfortable aliveness of genuine connection with God. The third way, and this one requires the most honesty to acknowledge, is shame. The distance between who you have been in the seasons of turning away and who you know God made you to be. The gap between the life you are living and the life you sense was intended for you. The specific things you have done or left undone that you are not sure you can face in the presence of a holy God. The feeling that you have wandered too far, that too much time has passed, that the version of you that is showing up to answer the call now is too diminished, too compromised, too far from what you were when the calling began to deserve the answer you once would have given without hesitation. This shame is real, and I am not going to minimize it, but I am going to tell you something about it that is the most important thing you will hear in this message. The shame is a lie, not the awareness of having fallen short. That awareness is accurate, but the conclusion that the falling short has disqualified you from answering the call, that the distance has become too great, that God has grown tired of calling and has moved on to someone more worthy. That conclusion is a lie. It is the specific lie that the enemy uses most effectively to keep the distance between a chosen one and their God permanent, because he knows that the moment you answer the call, everything he has built in the season of your turning away collapses. So he uses the weight of the very distance to convince you that the distance cannot be crossed. Type shame if you recognize that shame has been part of what has kept you from answering the call. Let me tell you the truth about what happens when you have been away, because this truth is what God most urgently wants you to receive through this message. While you were turned away, while the busyness and the distraction and the shame were keeping you from answering, while the distance between you and him was growing in the natural, something was happening in the spirit that contradicts the feeling of that distance completely. He was not stepping back as you stepped back. He was not growing colder as you grew more distant. He was not making mental notes of every moment of your turning away in preparation for a reckoning when you finally returned. He was doing none of those things. He was staying right where he was, right at the door of your life, right at the edge of your awareness, right in the space just beyond the busyness and the distraction and the noise where the call originates. He was staying, and he was calling, and he was patient in a way that has no human equivalent, because his patience is not the patience of someone waiting for something they are not sure is coming. It is the patience of someone who already knows you are going to turn around, who can see the moment of your return from a distance that your inability to see into the future cannot reach, who is waiting not with resignation, but with anticipation, who is preparing a reception for your return that is going to overwhelm you with the realization of how completely your turning away failed to change how he feels about you. Take a moment and like this video, because someone who has been away for a long time needs to find this message today. Type still here if you receive the truth that God has not moved, has not grown cold, has not stopped calling through every moment of your turning away. Now I need to talk about the urgency, because I said at the beginning of this message that this call carries something it has not carried before, and I need to explain what that urgency is and why it matters that you hear it today specifically. The urgency is not a threat. God does not operate in threats. The urgency is something else entirely. It is the urgency of timing, of a season that is opening, of an assignment that has your name on it and a window for that assignment that is specific to this moment in your life and that requires your full presence and your full engagement to enter. The urgency is not about punishment for continued absence. It is about opportunity that exists right now and that requires you to be in the right relationship with the right God to access. There are things that God has been holding in preparation for you that cannot be released into the version of your life that exists in the turning away, not because he is withholding them as punishment, but because the things he has prepared require the connection of your life to his purpose to receive and steward properly. And the connection requires the turning toward, the answering of the call, the choosing today, in this specific moment, to stop the turning away and to simply say yes to what has been calling you for longer than you have been willing to answer. The window is open, not forever, not because God's love is conditional, but because the specific alignment of circumstances and opportunity and divine timing that makes this the moment for what he has prepared for you is a gift of specific timing. and you are in it, right now. And the call is asking you to recognize that you are in it, and to respond accordingly. Type, now if you feel the urgency of this moment, and you are receiving it as an invitation rather than a pressure. Let me speak to something that I know some of you are feeling as you listen to this. There is a part of you that wants to respond, that feels the pull of the call more strongly in this moment than you have felt it in a long time, that recognizes the truth of what God is saying and wants to say yes to it. And there is another part of you that is afraid that saying yes and then falling short again will be worse than not having said yes at all. Afraid that the pattern of turning away will simply repeat itself, and the return will ultimately make you feel more guilty rather than less. Afraid that what you find when you turn toward Him will require changes that you are not sure you are ready to make. I want to speak to that fear directly, and then I want to release something over it. The fear of returning and then failing again is understandable, but it is based on a misunderstanding of what returning actually is. Returning to God is not a performance. It is not a commitment to a standard of perfect behavior that you must maintain from the moment of return, or the return is voided. Returning is simply a direction. It is the choice to face toward Him rather than away. And facing toward Him means that when you stumble, which you will, you stumble in the direction of His arms rather than away from them. The return does not require perfection. It requires only the choice to turn. And the turning, the simple, honest, imperfect turning of a person who has been away and is ready to come back, is all He has been waiting for. Stay with me in part 2 because God has more to say about what happens the moment you turn toward Him, about what He has been keeping for you in the time of your turning away, about what answering the call opens in your life that no amount of time in the distance could have produced, and about the specific and personal things He wants you to know about how He sees you in this exact moment of your watching this message. Welcome back. If you made it to part 2, something happened in part 1, not just in your mind but somewhere deeper. The call that has been going unanswered found a frequency in you that it has been looking for. And the stirring you are feeling right now, that mixture of recognition and longing and something that might be the beginning of a yes, is real. It is Him. It is still Him calling. Through this message, through this moment, through the specific combination of everything that brought you to this video on this day at this exact point in your story. In part 2, I want to tell you what happens the moment you turn, what God has been holding for you, what the return opens, and what He personally wants you to know about how He sees you right now. Type turning if you are beginning to turn toward Him as you enter this part. Let me start with what happens the moment you turn toward Him. Because the moment of turning is not the beginning of a long process of qualification before the relationship is restored. It is the beginning of the relationship itself being restored. Immediately, completely, without a waiting period, without a probationary season where you have to prove that the return is genuine before you are fully received. The scripture describes it in the parable of the prodigal son. When the son who had gone far away and wasted everything and found himself at the bottom of everything turned toward home while he was still a great way off, his father saw him and ran. He did not wait for the son to arrive and explain himself. He did not stand at the door with his arms crossed assessing whether the return was sincere enough to warrant a full reception. He ran. He covered the distance between them before the son had finished the journey back. And he put on him the best robe and the ring and the shoes and called for a celebration before the son had said anything beyond, "I am not worthy." That is the God who is calling you, the one who runs toward the returning, the one who covers the remaining distance between where you are and where He is, so that the journey back is shorter than the journey away, the one who restores immediately and completely and celebrates rather than lectures. The moment you turn, He is already moving toward you. And the reception that is waiting for you is not a sober and cautious reintegration into the relationship. It is a celebration. Because in the economy of heaven, every returning is a reason for celebration that heaven does not miss. Type "the Father ran" if you receive the truth that God's response to your turning is immediate, complete, and overwhelmingly gracious. Now let me tell you what God has been holding for you in the time of your turning away. Because the distance did not stop the preparation. He was not waiting for your return to begin getting ready for it. He was preparing the whole time. Every day that passed in the turning away was a day he was assembling what is waiting for you on the other side of the turning toward, specifically matched to who you are right now. Not to who you were when you first heard the call, not to the version of you that existed before the seasons of distance, to the version of you that is watching this message, that has been through whatever you have been through, that carries the specific scars and the specific wisdom and the specific depth that the years of living have produced even in the seasons of spiritual distance. Because God does not prepare for the idealized version of you, He prepares for the real version, the actual you, the one with the history and the failures and the questions and the complicated relationship with yourself and with Him. The preparation was designed for this you, and what it contains is specifically fitted to what this you needs and what this you is now equipped to receive. There are answers to prayers you prayed years ago that have been held in preparation for the moment of your return. There are connections that could not be activated until you were in the right relational position to receive them. There are assignments specific and personal and designed around the exact combination of your gifts and your history and your refined understanding that have been waiting for you to come back and take them up. All of it is ready, all of it is waiting, and all of it becomes accessible the moment you turn. Type "waiting for me" if you receive the truth that God has been preparing specifically for you throughout the entire time of your turning away. Let me talk about what answering the call opens in your life practically, because I want this to be specific rather than abstract. The first thing that opens is peace, the specific peace that only exists in the context of a right relationship with God. You have been seeking a version of peace through other channels during the time of turning away. Through achievement, through relationship, through distraction and entertainment, and the management of your inner world through external means. And none of those channels have produced the peace you were looking for, because that peace has only one source, and the source has been calling you back to it. The moment you turn, the peace that passes understanding, the peace that is not dependent on circumstances or outcomes or the behavior of other people, that peace becomes available to you again. And the contrast between what you have been living in and what becomes available will be immediate and unmistakable. The second thing that opens is clarity, the confusion that has characterized certain areas of your life in the seasons of distance, the inability to find a clear direction, the sense of moving without a compass in a landscape that all looks the same, that confusion is not a feature of your personality or a result of your circumstances. It is the natural consequence of navigating without the one who designed the navigation system. The moment you return to the relationship, the clarity begins to return, not always immediately or completely, but steadily. With each step toward Him, the fog clears a little more. The decisions that felt impossible become manageable. The direction that was obscured becomes visible, because the God who is calling you is the God who knows the path. And when you are walking with Him, you have access to knowledge about your own life that no natural intelligence could provide. Type clarity if you receive the truth that the confusion that has characterized the seasons of distance will begin to clear the moment you return to the relationship. The third thing that opens is your purpose, the specific, personal, God-designed assignment that has your name on it and that has been waiting for you since before you were born. In the seasons of distance, purpose becomes vague. It becomes a general sense of wanting to do something meaningful without the specific direction that only the caller of the purpose can provide. You may have been chasing versions of purpose during the turning away that were close to the real thing but not quite it. Good things, worthwhile things, but not the specific thing that God assembled you for, the thing that only you can do in the way that only you can do it. The thing that when you step into it will feel like the most natural expression of who you actually are, because it was designed to fit exactly what He designed you to be. That purpose is what the call has been calling you toward all along. Not just toward relationship, though the relationship is the foundation of everything. Toward the specific expression of yourself in the world that is your contribution to what God is doing in this generation. And you cannot fully step into it from the position of the turning away. It requires the connection. It requires the daily, living, active relationship with the God who designed the purpose to know the next step of walking in it. And that connection is exactly what He has been inviting you back to Type purpose if you receive the truth that answering the call is the door to the specific life you were designed to live. Now I want to speak directly to God's view of you in this exact moment, not the view that shame has constructed, not the view that the enemy has been projecting, not the view that the distance has made you assume is accurate, but the actual, unfiltered, true view of the God who has been calling you through every moment of your turning away. He sees a chosen one who has been through things that were hard, who made choices in the season of distance that were sometimes wrong, and who carried those choices and the weight of them in a way that became part of the reason for the continued distance. He sees someone who has been looking for what only he can give in places that were never equipped to provide it, who has been carrying a longing that cannot be named correctly without the vocabulary of the Spirit, who has been restless in a way that comfort and achievement and relationship and distraction have never been able to fully resolve, because the restlessness is the soul's response to the absence of the one thing it was made for. And looking at all of that, seeing all of it fully without the editing that shame applies, and without the distortion that distance creates, he feels not disappointment, not frustration, not the exhausted patience of someone who has been calling too long. He feels love. The specific, undiminished, personally directed, completely non-generic love of a father for a child he made with specific intention and has been watching for with specific longing. He loves you. Right now, in this exact state, with this exact history, with this exact distance still technically between you even though you are right on the edge of closing it. Type, he loves me. If you choose right now to receive the truth that God's love for you has not changed by a single degree through every moment of your turning away, I want to address something that is going to happen after you answer the call, because it is important that you are prepared for it so that it does not become a reason to turn away again. After the initial experience of returning, after the peace and the clarity and the joy of the restored connection, there will come a moment when the ordinary arrives, when the feeling of the return is no longer fresh, and the relationship begins to require not the dramatic yes of the initial turning, but the daily, mundane, repeated, unglamorous choice to keep facing toward him. The choice to pray when you do not feel like it, to trust when circumstances are not confirming what he said, to keep the connection open through seasons when the emotion of the connection is not always present. This moment, when the extraordinary experience of the return gives way to the ordinary practice of the relationship, is where many people turn away again, not because the relationship has stopped being real, but because they confuse the absence of the emotional peak of the return with the absence of God himself. And I want to prepare you for that moment now, so that when it arrives you recognize it as a normal and necessary part of the relationship, rather than as evidence that the return was not real or that something has gone wrong. The relationship with God, like every real relationship, has seasons. Seasons of intense closeness where his presence is immediately felt and the communication is vivid and the sense of connection is undeniable, and seasons where the closeness is real but quieter, where the faith is the faith of trust rather than the faith of feeling, where what you know about him carries you through what you are not currently experiencing of him. Both seasons are part of the real relationship, and navigating the quieter seasons without turning away is one of the most significant acts of faithfulness in the life of a chosen one. Type daily yes, if you are committing not just to the initial turning, but to the daily, ordinary, repeated choice to keep facing toward him through every season that follows. Let me close part 2 with what I believe is the most important thing God wants to say through this entire message, and it is simply this: he has not given up on you. In a world where most things and most people have conditions on their continuing investment, where patience runs out and interest fades, and love becomes contingent on performance, there is one relationship in your life where none of those things are true. He has not given up on you. He will not give up on you. The call that has been going unanswered is not going to stop, not because he is unaware of the repeated turning away. He is aware, every instance of it, but because the love that is doing the calling is not the kind that can be exhausted by the turning, which is no